I asked ChatGPT about the renters' rights bill. A lot of landlords are trying to figure out if they should stay in the market, if they should sell. A lot of renters want to understand what this new policy is and how it will impact them. I'm going to talk you through it. I'm going to answer your questions. And remember to make sure that you stay tuned until the end because I'm going to give you some really great advice and tips. My name is Anthony Lindsay, and I've been in finance for over 30 years. I say this because it means that I'm giving you information not just about mortgages, I'm giving you information not just about finances, but I also have life experience to couple with it. So, my question was about the Renters' Right Bill. And I asked the question very simply: what is the Renters' Rights Bill, and how will it impact landlords and tenants? A question that I get asked all the time. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone who you feel that it might benefit. Property investing has its risk, but it can be hugely beneficial if it's done right and if you have the right team. Quite often people cut corners, but you do need to have the right team and you need to make sure that you're not trying to get rich quick. Some of the questions that we're going to answer in this is: what is the Renters' Rights Bill? How does it impact renters? And how does it impact landlords? I have a lot of landlords that watch, and I know that you want the answer to the question. So this impacts landlords and renters, so it's important that you understand the changes. First, let's look at the impact on renters. The first thing is no fault evictions are abolished. Landlords can no longer evict tenants without a valid reason. You gain greater stability and security in your home if you're a tenant. So as a tenant, you now know that you can't just be kicked out because the landlord's trying to move in a friend or family or raise the rent. There are more protections under the law. If you are a landlord, that's not that great, but we'll get into that as we move forward. Another impact on tenants is the fact that all tenancies now become periodic. So fixed term tenancies will automatically become rolling contracts. You can give 2 months notice at any time, offering flexibility and freedom. This is great news for people that potentially are Gen Zs or people that just want the flexibility and the options of being able to move if they get a better job opportunity somewhere else. Or maybe you're a family and you want to move closer to your support network, or maybe you're an older person and your parents are getting older and you want to be closer to them. So this is going to give you more options by the way of giving you that 2 months notice period, which is huge if you're a tenant. Another impact on renters is annual rent increases only. Landlords can only raise rent once per year and must give 2 months notice. You can challenge unfair increases through a tribunal. You might feel, if you're a landlord, that this is one of those things that is very heavily weighted towards your tenants. And this is why, if you are getting a tenant, you need to make sure that you have the right contracts, the right tenancy agreements in place. Don't go on ChatGPT or get one of these free templates, because a lot of renters will know their rights and not every renter has your best interest in mind. So with these provisions, the government is trying to give us a fairer society and give us a society where people feel that they have more stability. But you will always have people that try to take advantage of the law. Tenants will do that, landlords will do that. But as a landlord, you need to make sure that you have all your paperwork in place and you're doing things by the letter of the law. Another impact is the legal right to pets and fair treatment. Landlords must consider pet requests reasonably, can't just say no, and can't discriminate against renters with children or those on benefits. If you've been a landlord for a while, there may be reasons why there's certain groups of people or types of people or parents or pets. There might be reasons why you don't prefer to rent in those situations. This new provision is going to protect the renter. So you're not going to be able to just say, no, I don't want pets or I don't want anyone on benefits. And I understand that. And it's probably a good thing because everybody needs somewhere to live. But as a landlord, this will impact your options and your selection criteria when you are deciding on who's moving into your property. And contrary to popular belief, like landlords aren't these millionaire people. Most landlords are small landlords. They have maybe one or two, maybe three properties, including their residential. And a lot of people are using property as their pension scheme. So, whereas somebody else might be maxing out the payments into their pensions, some people are saying, you know what, I'm going to use some of that money to buy property. So, this ability to be able to select who you want living in your property because maybe you've had some bad experience with people with pets or people with kids. No more. You're going to have to be really careful about that. Let's look at the impacts on the landlord. So, stricter eviction grounds. So, Section 8 expansion. Evictions must be based on specific legal grounds, such as selling the property or tenant misconduct. This means more paperwork and legal justification. This is why it's vital. I hear it all the time where landlords are in these property groups and they're like, can someone send me a tenancy agreement? Don't do that. Go to someone who's a professional that's going to make sure that the tenancy agreement that you have in place is something that is up to date with the current laws, also something that is sound and something that can be defended in court. You want to surround yourself with good property professionals that are going to give you the best advice, and you will have to pay them. But you are in the property business. You're not in the charity business, and neither are they. So they're going to be able to give you good advice. Make sure you shop around. Make sure you talk to other landlords that are doing a similar thing, that are a little bit ahead of you, that you'll be able to get the best advice, best guidance. Make sure that your contracts and lease agreements are sound. Another impact on landlords is mandatory registration. Landlords must register themselves and their properties in a national online database. This adds administrative responsibility and transparency. If anyone told you that being a property owner or a landlord or a property investor is easy, they're probably trying to sell you a course. It is a lot of work. So you need to make sure that you're doing the work. You need to make sure that you stay on top of your paperwork. You don't cut corners. You have the right systems in place. You will need to invest in these things, but it will be well worth it because it will protect you in the long run and ensure that your investment in the property is something that is lucrative and something that is benefiting you. Now let's look at the minimum property standards. All properties must meet the decent home standard. This may require upgrades, meet health and safety criteria. So, for example, damp and mold. I don't think that I know a landlord that would deliberately make sure that their property, which is their investment and quite often their pension, I don't think I know any landlords that just deliberately don't keep their property up to a really high standard. So the idea that, you have these slumlords that are just sitting and rolling around in money like Scrooge McDuck, I don't think that that's really a thing. But there is going to be a standard that is set by the government that people will have to keep their property to that standard. This could be a huge strain on you as a landlord if you have tenants that are constantly breaking things or other things. So make sure you're taking this into consideration as you decide if this is the path for you. Let's look at this new ombudsman and stronger tenants' rights. A new ombudsman will handle tenant complaints. Tenants will have more avenues to challenge landlords, increasing scrutiny and accountability. So it is what it says on the tin. You're going to need to make sure that you're not only following the letter of the law, but also following the spirit of the law when engaging with your tenants. So making sure that they're happy, they feel that the home is comfortable, because you don't want to end up in a situation where they go to the ombudsman, because quite often these consumer agencies, these consumer advocacy agencies are designed to protect the consumer. And it's very heavily weighted towards the protection of the consumer. There'll be an assumption that as a landlord, you should know better and you should not allow, mold or things of that nature. So make sure that you're vetting your tenants accurately and correctly. Do the work. Make sure it's the type of people that you want living in your property, and it will pay off. If you just move people in because they can pay the rent, it will probably come back and bite you. Financial literacy is so important. I quite often have conversations with people where they'll say there's no access to information or there's limited access to information. I don't believe that to be true. And I've written a book called A Mortgage is a Really Big Loan. It will help improve your financial literacy, not just around mortgages, but also just around some basic terms that are used in finance. I use some real world experiences as someone who's been a bank manager and a senior manager in financial institutions for over 30 years, both in the US and the UK. There's some really good information in this book. Make sure you get it. It's available on Amazon. So let's just go through these questions. What is a buy to let mortgage? Is an interest mortgage a good idea? And do I need a mortgage for investing? The reason why I'm going to ask these questions is because if you're considering becoming a landlord or you're currently a landlord, these are the type of things and challenges that you will face. So I just want to break down some of these things. So buy to let versus residential. So if you're getting a buy to let mortgage, usually the deposit size is going to be larger, so about 25%. The use of the property, a buy to let property, is designed for you renting out. So it's a different kind of mortgage, it's a different product. So you're purchasing a property for the specific purpose of renting it to other people. I have another video on all the pitfalls of renting to family. Do not rent to family. It will cause a lot of problems for you, not only because you may fall out, money always makes people fall out, it seems, but also because the type of mortgage you can get will be different. You do need to disclose on the application when you're getting a mortgage if you plan on renting to friends and family. Another question that gets asked a lot: should I buy an investment property or buy to let in my personal name, or should I buy it through an SPV or a limited company? The answer is it depends. Make sure that you speak to a property professional, an accountant that specializes in property. Talk through what your long term goals are. Do you plan on just having two properties, or are you planning on building a property portfolio? That's the only way you'll be able to determine if you should buy in personal name or in a limited company. You'll see a lot of courses, you'll see a lot of these ads online about all of the joys and benefits of buying through a limited company. And that can be the case, but you need to make sure that your specific circumstances are factored in when you're making that decision. Interest only versus repayment mortgages. So there's different criteria, and depending on your age and the repayment vehicle, 9 times out of 10, if someone is buying a buy to let property, they tend to do it on an interest only basis. So let me just explain that a little bit. You have repayment mortgages, which means every month that you make your mortgage payment, you pay a little bit of interest and you pay a little bit of the capital. So at the end of the term, so the full term of that mortgage, not the fixed term, but at the end of the full term of that mortgage, you will have paid off the entire mortgage. Interest only mortgages do not work like that. So when you take out an interest only mortgage, it does exactly what it says on the tin. You're just paying the interest. So let's just say you purchased a property for 200,000 on an interest only mortgage with a 20-year term. You'll pay every month for 20 years. At the end of 20 years, you still owe the principal. So what you're going to be asked is, what is your exit strategy? So the bank is going to say, at the end of that 20-year term, how do you plan on repaying this loan? Most people, as their exit strategy, is to sell the property. Now, that's not to say you have to sell the property, but why would someone do that? And that's a good question. And I get asked that all the time. If you're getting a buy to let property, the idea behind getting an interest only mortgage, if you choose to do that, is that you purchase the property, let's say for 200,000. You take out a 20-year term. Over that 20 years, if history is any indicator, that property will increase in value. So let's just say it increases in value by 100,000 to make the numbers easy. So you bought it for 200,000. It's increased in value over 20 years, 100,000. So now that property's worth 300,000 pounds, but you only owe 200,000. So if your exit strategy is to sell, then when you sell it, let's just say you sell it for the 300,000, you have 100,000 pounds in your pocket minus fees, etc. But here's the bonus. Over that 20 years, you will have been gaining a profit because let's just say your mortgage is £1,000 a month and you're renting it out for £2,000 a month. You're making £1,000 a month in profit minus fees, etc. But the idea is you get a monthly benefit, and over the 20 years, you get the appreciation benefit. So if you do decide that your exit strategy is to sell, you get the money from the appreciation and value, plus you were achieving income every single month. So that's why someone might consider, and most of the time would do, an interest only mortgage on a buy to let property. Mortgage types. So if you are going to purchase a property through a limited company, make sure you think about something called an SIC code. So a SIC code, SIC. Make sure that you understand how you're going to be using the property. Are you going to use it for supported living, HMO? And are you buying through an SPV or a limited company? So if you decide to purchase through a limited company because you've talked to an accountant who specializes in property, one of the things that they may not tell you, because different professionals have different areas of licensing. So as a broker, I'm licensed to go through mortgage products, talk to you about protection, etc. But I'm not licensed to give you tax advice. So you need to go to an accountant for that. But the accountant is not necessarily going to understand lending criteria. So this is why it's important that you understand SIC codes, SIC, because if you're purchasing a buy-to-let property through a limited company, the lender is going to want to make sure you have the right SIC codes. So for different usages, so HMO, assisted living, etc., you'll need specific SIC codes. And if you don't have those things, then you won't be able to go to that lender. Some lenders even require that your limited company is specific to property. So let's just say you own a home health care company doing really well. You want to buy a property for assisted living. Some lenders would need you to set up a separate limited company specifically for the use of property. You're not doing anything else in there. To be clear, I'm giving general guidance, general rule of thumbs. Always make sure you speak to a professional because these videos are not designed to replace you speaking to a professional. I'm not giving financial or legal advice. This is just general information based on how mortgages work in the UK and just giving you some guidelines and some things to look out for while you're having the conversation. And don't forget about the additional costs. So there are additional costs involved in getting a buy-to-let property or a second property. There'll be an additional stamp duty. So there's a second home stamp duty. Make sure you look at on the YouGov site about stamp duty, solicitors fees, brokers fees, product fees and valuation, and moving. As far as the broker's fees, you will find that some brokers charge one broker fee for residential purchases and a different broker fee for buy-to-let property or commercial. Solicitors, they just charge, they're going to charge you for the type of property it is and the different things they need to do. Freehold properties usually are going to be less expensive than leasehold properties when you are talking to a solicitor. And the product fees, this is something that I always have to do visually with my clients is the product fee. So when you're looking for a buy-to-let mortgage, you might find that there's some products, some mortgages that have a really low interest rate. But when you look at it quite often, rule of thumb, they have really high product fees. So that means to get that particular mortgage at that low interest rate, you might spend 7, 10, 15, 20,000 pounds or a percentage of the actual mortgage amount. So what you will find most of the time is the higher the product fee, the lower the interest rate. So the higher the product fee, the lower the interest rate. So when you speak to your broker and you say, get me the best rate you can get me, always make sure that you're understanding that that may mean that there's a higher product fee. Now, the product fee can, in most cases, be added to the mortgage. So it's not necessarily something you'll pay out of your pocket, but a high product fee isn't always the best idea. And it's not always going to leave you in the best position as far as your overall profit on that property. Estate planning, big deal, very big deal. Make sure that you listen. Um, you need to have an estate plan. You need to have things in place for not if, but when you pass. So, where is the information? What I mean by that is quite frequently I've had to do equity releases or different mortgages for people who have inherited property. And so frequently I found that, maybe they had a parent or a grandparent who had all these properties, but nobody knew where the will was, or there was no will. And a lot of the money then gets eaten up in probate and people arguing and fighting. So always make sure, as part of your property strategy and part of your property portfolio, estate planning is a vital part of it. Don't view it as something that's just costing you money, because in the long run, making sure that you have the right estate planning in place is not only going to be beneficial to you, but it will be beneficial for generations to come. Whose name is on the deed? Make sure you sort those things out. Make sure that everyone's clear who's on deeds and where deeds are kept and what lender they're with and who knows what. If you've read my book, you know that one of the things that I major in on, let everybody know what everybody knows. And this is a shocking statement, and it's probably something that people won't agree with. But in my view, and from my experience, it's always good to let everybody know what everybody knows. And what I mean by that is if you've got a will, let everybody know you have a will. Let the appropriate people know where the will is. If you're updating your will, at that point, you should communicate to everyone that you're updating your will. I don't mean everybody. You don't need to tell the guy at the pub, but everybody that is going to be impacted by this will or may have a reason to contest the will, let them know when the most recent will was made and whoever your executives are, as well as, making sure the appropriate people know where the will is. And I would also mention, just you don't have to tell people how much they're getting, but it is useful for everyone to know who is included in the will. People, especially older people who have had really long lives, like my grandmother died in her 90s. She had periods of her life where, one family member was close to her and then another family member. She came from a large family. And what can happen is, depending on what season a friend or family member was aiding that person, they may feel they have a right to something. So you might have a cousin or a sister that 30 years ago bought the person a new pair of shoes and they feel like now they should be getting, a part of the estate. So I just think it's a good way of planning your life and your estate by letting the people that are going to be included in your will know, and that everybody knows that everybody knows. It can help you avoid any issues when you pass, as far as people contesting the will and as far as family disputes and family feuds. As I said, I've written a book. It's called A Mortgage is a Really Big Loan. It's a financial book. It's not just about mortgages. It's great if you have a young person who is planning on purchasing a house 5 years from now or when they feel ready. It's going to give them the tools that they need in order to be able to plan effectively. Because as they say, people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. Make sure that you watch this video all the way to the end, because as I said, I've got some hints and tips for you. My name is Anthony Lindsay, and I've been in finance for over 30 years. I'd really appreciate it. This is a small channel. If you could share this video with anyone that you might find or believe might find it useful, share it with people that you know just have questions. And I have a lot of other videos in here. This one, I focused on the renters' rights bill and also on how to get the best mortgage. And here's a tip, and this is the gem for you. Speak to a mortgage broker 6 months before you think you're ready. Why do I say that? There's a lot of things that can come up that take time to fix, specifically around credit. So if you go to a mortgage broker after you've made an offer on a home and we find that there's a unsatisfied default or a missed payment or a late payment that genuinely is an error, we don't have the time to fix it because the lender will go on what they see on the credit report. So that's the gem. Make sure you speak to a mortgage broker 6 months before you're ready. If you're looking to invest in property, make sure you speak to an accountant who specializes in property. If you go to their website and their website shows that they do absolutely everything and they're a one-man band or a smaller firm, I would avoid that. Go to someone who specializes in property. If it's a huge firm and they have the different departments, that's a little bit different. But if you go to someone that doesn't specialize in property, quite often you're not going to get the best guidance and advice because the likelihood of them being able to keep up with everything and things move and change quickly, the likelihood of them being able to keep up with everything is quite slim. So make sure you like and subscribe. I appreciate you watching. And if you know someone that this video would be useful to, please share it with them and leave your comments. So if you're an accountant, if you're a mortgage broker, if you're a property professional, and I've said something that you don't feel is quite correct, make sure you put that in the comments. If you have an idea or a suggestion on a video that I can do, put that in the comments as well. And I'd be more than happy to answer your questions.